Let's get our ordinary council meeting underway. Jeez. Councillors, staff, members of the gallery, welcome to this Armidale Regional Council meeting of 22nd of March 2023. I'd like to ask the General Manager, I'd like to ask Councillor Golightly to give us the civic affirmation.
We, the Council of Armidale Regional, declare that we undertake the duties of the Office of Council in the best interests of our community and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us to the best of our skills and judgments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golightly. And can I call upon Councillor O'Connor to
this is the recognition of traditional owners. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The Armidale regional community pays tribute to their love of land, love of people and love of culture.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Could I call upon the General Manager to make a statement regarding live streaming?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and the recordings of the non-confidential parts of the meeting will be made available on the internet. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by Council to do so, and could all mobile phones please be set to silent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Councillors, I have not received any apologies or requests for absence, but I note one of our councillors is not in the chamber, but she will return when she returns. We'll crack on. Councillors, having reviewed the agenda, do any of you need to declare a conflict of interest? Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Referencing item 6.1, recognising the achievements of the Keys to the City. The model code of conduct expects me to make fully informed decisions using my best judgment and due diligence. By policy design, I have been precluded from assessing the nomination and have not received clarification that the award thresholds have been met. For that reason, I declare a non-pecuniary interest and intend to leave the chamber during the discussion and abstain from voting. Further that, in item 6.2, referencing the Australian Transport Museum, I have an insignificant non-pecuniary interest by virtue of family connection. I intend to participate in the discussion and vote on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Well, councillors, that brings us to the mayoral minutes, 6.1 and 6.2. So the first one, item 6.1, which is recognising the achievements of Tony Deacon. Tony has been a significant contributor to this region. His architectural work has shaped Armidale and surrounds. Sorry, we have two. I did jump, thank you. Could I now go to, I know to tick things off, confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of February 2023. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Redwood, and Councillor Mepham can second that. Councillors, does anyone wish to make any comment on the minutes? All good. Okay, well, let's put that to a vote. All those in favour of accepting those minutes? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Now, which brings me to item 6.1, and Councillor Packham will leave the room for that. So this is item 6.1, recognising the achievements of Tony Deacon. So Tony has been a significant contributor to this region. His architectural work has shaped Armidale and surrounds and will continue to do so for generations to come. Tony was a councillor of the Armidale City Council and served as mayor in 1987. In 2000, he was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia. It has been decades since a member of our community was awarded the keys to the city, and I'm thrilled that we are restarting the process of acknowledging those who have made a significant contribution to our region. So as chair, I move this minute and I call for a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Redwood. Councillors, any comments or discussion to be had? Councillor Witters.
Yep, and over my time in the numerous jobs that I've done, I've sat on a lot of selection panels for different sorts of things, for jobs, awards, tenders, all those different sorts of things. And in that time, I've gained a lot of skills, I suppose, in reading applications for different sorts of things. And living in a small town like Armidale, a lot of the time, you know the applicant or you know of the applicant and things like that. So you've really got to take away the personal context and look at the application on itself and judge all the merits on the application, on what's given for you. So what I'm about to say is based on that. It's based on the application that was put into us. So, and it's interesting that it's been a while since the keys to the city have been handed out, because some may treat it as a symbolic gesture with no real relevance, but I see it for what it really is. It's a recognition of significant contribution to the town, the region, which is what we are now, and all its residents, not just a select few or a select subsection. Having based my thoughts on this, on the application, I've seen this application was put in previously before, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I remember reading it then, and looking at it again now. Nothing's there's been no add-on. When it was previously put in, it was, for lack of a better word, rejected based on what was in the application, and I feel for it to come back again, it needed to have some extra stuff put in, which it hasn't. So it's really just a repeat of what was already put towards the councillors before. So it gets me wondering why the same application would be put in. And then just looking at it, for such a highly regarded civic recognition, applications for keys to the city need to be really top-notch applications, I feel. With the weight that I put on that civic award, I think they need to be top of the line, top 1% of applications, and really get into depth on why the applicant deserves it. And I feel that this application doesn't do that. And reading through the summary of accomplishments, I tried to find a reason not to say no. Like, I read it over and over and over and over again, looking for reasons not to have this say. And all I could find, to me, and this is just my personal opinion, it reads as not an application for the individual applicant, but as an application for the applicant's architectural firm. It doesn't really, it talks about what the architectural firm has done. It talks about them listed as preparations of briefs, productions of sketch plans, productions of working drawings and specifications, calling for tenders and administering buildings and contracts. In other words, just doing their job. When I would be looking at an application for something as strong as the keys to the city, something above and beyond that, like outside of doing what you're getting paid to do, so something philanthropist or community-minded, and because, as I said, looking at it just at the application given in, taking away the personal, nowhere in the application does it list anything of that. There's no, as of significance, the contribution for the community. I would be looking for involvement in community organisations and endeavours, making things like a significant contribution to the community. Have they applied for grants for things like parks or cycleways or facilities for the community? Have they been involved in sporting organisations and teams and kept them running and kept those organisations going? Have they been involved in non-profit and charitable organisations? Have they fundraised and lobbied for community products? How has their contribution stood the test of time, that people 30, 40, 50 years later remember their contribution? Like when you say a person's name, no matter who you're talking to in the community goes, yep, I know that person. And a good example is people who get parks named after him who are involved in, say, organisations. So you look at someone like a Phil Wheaton over or a Jack Valent over, people know straight away the contribution they put in. And just to finish off, I see my time is up, and everyone knows I'm a stickler for that. So 30 seconds, please, Mr. Mayor. Some in this chamber will tell you that this award should be approved because the applicant went to the effort of putting in an application, and others haven't. But there is a reason the keys haven't been handed out for a long time, because it takes an exceptional applicant to do that to receive them. And again, based on what I've seen in the application, I don't think that's a thing. And just finally, as councillors, we are burdened in our decisions by the legacies we leave and the precedents that we set. Numerous times I've sat here and listened to my fellow councillors talk about decisions made by previous councils, leaving us in unenviable positions, and I've heard councillors talk about not burdening future councillors with our decisions. This decision has the potential to open up, for lack of better words, a Pandora's box of applications that may not be worthy in the future, and that is why I can't support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd really like to say a word to absolutely endorse this. I've read the criteria and they're quite different to Citizen of the Year or something like this. This is about a citizen making a remarkable and lasting contribution to the quality of life, to the nature of the city, and I can't think of a better recipient than Tony Deakin, who, as the recitation within the minute here shows, has just been responsible for so much exquisite architecture, which has managed to allow Armidale to be a city. I often run into tourists who say, what a beautiful built environment you have, so many fabulous buildings, so many. And when you look through this list, and I do encourage members of the public to do that, look through the list of masterpieces which Mr. Deakin with his firm, McGoffin and Deakin, have created, not just in Armidale but in our region, things like the seamless and gorgeous transition to a modern hall, which is used by the community a lot behind the Anglican Cathedral. It captures the quality of the cathedral, which has been declared a heritage. It's on the State Heritage Register with a different, well-known architect, but suddenly we have this beautiful modern echo of that building in Mr. Deakin's design for that. You could say the same thing about all the buildings on the TAS campus, which is magnificent. I'm not going to go on and on, but I would love to. The Hannah's Arcade, it's our Strand Arcade, absolutely beautiful. And I know that Mr. Deakin's responsible for many private commissions, which are extraordinary. I know there's a residential house on the corner of Donnelly and Marsh Street, which is built on a tiny little pocket handkerchief. I won't say who the private owners are, but a tiny little pocket handkerchief of land. But it was the dream of those owners to build a sort of European Venetian sort of courtyard home. And I've been inside that home and it's stunning. And it's so different to anything else. Once again, the work of Mr. Deakin. So all I want, and the Aboriginal Cultural Centre in Keeping Place, wherever you turn, perhaps it's because things fit so well that we don't notice them, we just accept them. But anybody who's been to a place where there's been kind of brutal modern architecture that doesn't fit the heritage background and the heritage buildings that we so prize here, it can feel the kind of existential angst of the mismatch, and we don't have that problem here. When our tourists come here, there's this magnificent blending of old and new, and I think that is a lasting contribution. That this exquisite excellence that's been shown by Mr. Deakin, I think, is something that absolutely does merit the unusual but prestigious award of the Keys to the City.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Gathers. Councillor O'Connor, if you could hit your... Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to say a few words in favour of this minute. Look, I see it's an honour. This is a substantial in the history of our region in terms of this award. Mr. Deakin is very deserving of this award. some weeks back, in seeing the criteria of this award and the detailed resume that was put forward as part of the nomination, I took the opportunity to pub test the detail in this memo with a group of young children from our region. In this discussion, sorry? No, not in the pub, thank you. Well, smoke test then, that's not good either. In this discussion, I read out the nomination and the many prominent buildings and projects that Mr Deakin had been part of creating. The reaction from the group of teenagers: we can't believe that a person has had so much to do with the buildings around this town. They went on to say that we ride and walk past these places nearly every day, and we had no idea that a person could be so involved in the creation of so many buildings. So I must say, in my opinion, this young group of teenagers were inspired by the resume, by what they heard, and being able to connect this to their local surroundings. And isn't that one of the reasons that we and the younger generation should be inspired? Great people who have contributed so much to our region and to our society deserve our recognition. This particular recognition is for the keys of the city. Architecture is an attraction. It's the culture. It provides a level of culture and a large element of the fabric of this particular region. Now, while I've heard it said that in this particular nomination it seems that this gentleman was just doing his job, I've also taken the time to research the background here and have it from many, many sources that more often than not, Mr Deakin actually extended his services for some of the community-orientated structures. He extended those services on a pro bono basis after hours, such as some of the structures were the churches, some of the nursing homes, Niram, the Keeping Place, the Museum of Education, the Armidale Playhouse, and even up at Sumaris Homestead. These were apparently done on pro bono purposes. I also know Mr Deakin firsthand. He's a member of our local Rotary Club. I see him giving back all the time to the community and in service of our community. He's now retired. He does continue with his efforts though, and he doesn't need to do this, but he definitely continues on with that. So look, I hope this recognition actually inspires many of our local youth to be such a big part of building the region's fabric. And I look forward from this, and we welcome many more nominations for the award for great people that have built the foundation of this region in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gadders. Councillor Redwood.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As the seconder of your motion, I'm very happy to go last.
Second last, as it turns out.
Sorry, second last. This is an important recognition, acknowledgement that we're talking about here. But I think what we have to remember is it's not a precious resource either. It's not something that's limited. There's no limit to how many people can receive it in any form or fashion. And I think given the contribution of the applicant is significant, and we've also received pub test results as well as referencing and verifying the CV and the application, that I think it's an incredibly worthy recognition, and of course I support it.
Thank you. Councillor Galettley.
I think it's pretty ironic that we've got one of our other fellows that probably half deserve it, or maybe three quarters deserve it, in Lyndon Hardman here. And I'd like to put forward that if at the starting of the Autumn Festival, I would really, really like and think it's a great idea if we could have Tony Deakin in one of Lyndon's lovely cars be the leader of the Autumn Festival and the opening of it. I think it would be a really, really, really good thing for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galettley. Well, let's see how the vote falls. So, councillors, if there are no further comments, I'd like to put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against? 1. I declare that carried 9-2. Thank you. Benzica? Pardon?
Sorry, 9-1.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillors, item 6.2, the Australian Transport Museum. So we have had an enlightening presentation by the members of the board of the Australian Transport Museum, and I genuinely wish them all success in bringing this initiative to fruition. Council became involved with the museum at the time of its formation to help establish the entity. The museum has reached a stage of maturity that direct council involvement in the museum as a member is no longer required. So there is a minute there that needs some tweaking, and that's to remove the, sorry, there's a recommendation there, to remove the words shareholding and come back to membership. So, councillors, I commend to you that council ceases the membership of its membership in the Australian Transport Museum, ceases all directorships with the Australian Transport Museum, and the General Manager writes to the Transport Museum to provide notice of the Council's decision. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor McMichael. Any comments at all? Well, let's put that, Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that based on the presentation that we've had earlier, hopefully this success or the resolution of this matter will enable council to stand firmly in favour of some grant applications to see this project come to fruition.
Thank you. Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thank the speakers for the presentation. I think it's important for everyone here to note, and who may not have had privy to see the overall business plan, business paper that's been put together, is that so far council have come sort of together with a partnership in this in lots of ways, and it's over a lot of years, and including what may have been a lost point there in terms of our tourism strategy. But equally, the council has asked the Transport Museum to put a significant amount of space and dedicate that to people stopping with their caravans or vans, or just people who need tourist information coming to town. And it's not about just stopping to find out a bit of information about the museum. It's quite substantial at 300 and something square metres. And whilst we all agree that, well, we haven't voted yet, but the membership should cease, and that gives council an opportunity to step back, but also be able to step forward and shoulder to shoulder the burden here, is that, I'll get my thoughts together, is that what the way that the offering of a lease to land is available, I'm hoping that this council, we can work together to make that not so onerous, not to be too restrictive. I mean, it's supposed to be a symbiotic relationship going forward for the next 20, 30 years in terms of a lease agreement. So in whatever we do, we know it's hard. It's been hard to find funding for this over the last 20 years. It's still going to remain hard to find funding over this, but that we should, as a council, work together to make sure that whatever arrangements, whatever partnership arrangements we put in here with lease or otherwise, that it's on equitable terms and not on terms that provide undue burden on the success of this for the region. Yes, I have an interest in seeing this great idea go forward. Yes, I've declared my interest in that, but let's just put into context, two of those vehicles, the Isotta Fraschini and the James Bond DB5, are worth $2 million plus in their own right. And why shouldn't everyone get a chance to see that if we can do that and get bed nights to go with it? So all for ceasing the membership, as long as the membership translates into an ongoing partnership in lots of ways. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, if there are no further comments, let's put that to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, we now go to the 7 series. There's only one item there, which is the council actions report, which details are from page 14 of the agenda and page 13 of the attachment. So the report summarises the actions taken on resolutions of council for the period from January 2022 to February 2023. Council is asked to note this report. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. A seconder? Thanks, Councillor Gadders. Councillor O'Connor, do you wish to say anything? No? Councillor Gadders? No? Any other councillors? Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, we were very grateful to receive the briefing from the General Manager and his team during on Monday, afternoon, which was quite extensive actually. We actually had a good talk about what's been going on and going off. We did note, however, that the actions report appears to be missing a few resolutions of council, and we're working together to try and make that update going forward. It's great to note those things. We don't necessarily endorse the actions that are slated. However, we are noting the reports and the action. We're good to see some action moving forward on all the resolutions of council since we came to be in January 2022.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Packham. All right, councillors, let's put it to a vote. All those in favour of noting the report? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. We now jump to the 9 series, which refers to planning and activation. So item 9.1 is a planning proposal for 57 Newton Street, where council is seeking approval to forward the planning proposal in relation to 57 Newton Street to the Department of Planning with a request for a gateway determination. Details are on page 15 of the agenda and 35 of the attachments. Now, there is a recommendation on the screen that I will not labour in reading out, but do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Packham, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Redwood. Councillor Packham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is great work from the planning department. It's sort of regularising that Armidale came to be from way back when, and that people did have businesses, and it was traditional to have businesses in residential areas. The corner shop was one indeed. Workshops were one. Mechanic shops were another. People even had petrol houses in the front of things, or fruit stands or otherwise. And just because we seem to be in 2023 or the new era, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't encapsulate and crystallise that goodwill and good feeling of being in having businesses continue use on the land in which they have occupied for that purpose for eons of time. And again, congratulate the planning department for going in the bat to try and do this for both the occupier, future occupiers, and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Packham. Councillor Redwood.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. In a similar vein, I think it's just another important step in us continuing to grow as a region, and we hope to see much more of this, where we decentralising our areas and starting to spread some of these businesses through the areas where they're required, where the market asks for them.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to have a word? Let's put it to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I'll take that carried unanimously. Councillors, item 9.2 is in relation to a draft swimming pool barrier inspection program policy, with details on page 20 of the agenda and 107 of the attachments. So there is a recommendation on the screen where council is being asked to endorse the policy for public exhibition and receive a further report once the submission period closes. Could I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Packham, and Councillor Robinson is the seconder. Anything to say, Councillor Packham?
Why not? Why not?
You're on a roll.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the opportunity. This is obviously an important aspect to regulation and safety of our citizens in the area. It's time that we had the policy put into place. And especially more so because I feel that the frivolous nature of some of the retailers in modern day says that, everybody could just get a pool, blow it up, throw it in the front yard without actually concerning themselves with the safety and security of our children or elderly, whoever might fall into that sort of body of water. I also noted that in our briefing, moves by council officers, which will be endorsed potentially in our budget period to reduce the inspection charges and the annual licensing of said barriers and etc. And I think that's a great acknowledgement that swimming, pools, etc. is part of our way of life, and that we shouldn't unnecessarily burden that, but at the same time we wish to make people safe and go from there.
Thank you. And Councillor Robinson is our seconder. Anything to add?
Yeah, it's part of our statutory obligations, so let's consult the public and see what they say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone else wish to say anything? Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, we now jump to the 12 series, which are the notices of motion. We have 2 notices of motion. The first one, item 12.1, 1, Councillor McMichael has provided a notice of motion in relation to enabling council-run public libraries to continue to be community partners with the Trove National Archive, with details are on page 23 of the agenda. So I'll call upon Councillor McMichael to move the motion and provide some context.
Thanks, Mayor. Trove is Australia's is run by the National Library of Australia. It has more than 6 billion digital items run from a number of libraries. It has from over 900 Australian collecting institutions. It's a huge source of information for large numbers of Australians. Anyone can access it. For the last number of years, it's been free until budget cuts from the previous government cut Trove's funding and made the National Library put in fees. As a result of those fees, libraries have had to put in charges for the use of Trove, which receives more than 22 million visits per month. Now, people access it for all kinds of reasons. Find your family, find your ancestors, look up research, go to school, all kinds of things. But it's funded mainly by libraries, and libraries are funded from state governments and by councils. As a result of the funding cuts, people are being asked to use it, to pay more. Libraries are being asked to use more, and it's Peter. Look, we pay for our library, okay? And what we're asking is that the federal government restore the funding to Trove, because it's ridiculous that the funding cuts have an impact on this great research institution. That's my. The indications are that at least 10% of libraries have already said that they won't use Trove now, and yeah, so we're asking that we write to the federal government and to increase the federal funding of Trove. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McMichael. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor O'Brien. Councillors, now that motion is really afoot, Councillor O'Brien, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Councillor McMichael, for putting this motion forward, because I don't know if people realise what an incredibly valuable resource it is. I actually went on today, and it's worse than Facebook. You just throw anything in the research and you go down a rabbit hole. I put in Irish workers, early Australia, and women politicians, and the juiciness that I just couldn't tear myself away from it. But it's more than just juicy gossip from the past, obviously. It's actually an institution which most of our libraries, our research institutions, our universities, our local historians really rely on to get a feel for and a knowledge of what's happened in the past in their local area. And it's a partnership in the sense that it's all the local communities that feed into the archives, all the local stories right throughout history that creates a unified archive for everyone to call on. It's such a precious thing. I mean, I found out through Trove that my great-great-great-grandparents donated the stained glass windows to the cathedral here, which I had no idea. I have to go in to see it, no. And I might get struck by lightning, so I haven't seen it yet. But you find out so much about your town, you find out so much about your family history. There are many university PhD students who simply couldn't do their PhDs without Trove. Even if you put in any house address, you will find out the history of that house. Like I put in just any old address in Sydney and saw that these people were advertising for servants, and they advertised for young servant girl, must be a Protestant. And a couple of months later, they just called for young servant girl after they discovered that Protestants weren't quite as clean as Catholics or something. But so you could follow that one family, and it's one of the best in the world, apparently. It holds digital copies of newspapers, government gazettes, maps, magazines, books, photographs, archived websites, music, interviews, and old campaign posters. This is an old campaign poster that I just printed from there this morning from 1903. It says, "Vote for woman candidate, Vida Goldstein. Every woman of every political party should endeavour to secure the return of the woman candidate, as all the men in Parliament cannot represent one woman as adequately as one woman can represent all women." I've learned something already, and I'm sure you have too. So this is the kind of gems that you find there. And anyone who wants to learn about our history, any aspect of our history, for example, a 1936 recipe for sliced heart and banana fried in fat to make your wartime rations go further. The distribution of Aboriginal tribes in Australia during that very early periods, that particular maps were just invaluable for future. They store our community resources forever, and it's an expansive archive, and it's so valuable. It's become part of our research infrastructure, and the Local Heritage Commission has said it is one of our most valuable sources of heritage, our most valuable heritage in the country. We even found out things like a famous bluestone fountain in Melbourne, when a person was going through the history to try to find how it was built, found that it was built by a prisoner, and he died because they used particular kind of bluestone material that they used to keep bluestone together, and they knew from that how many people would have died from using that kind of material in the past. It's valuable for our understanding of the past because they're the kind of decisions we make about our future. It's education, it's history. And the fact that our communities all around Australia have been using this resource to build our communities and to inform our communities, it's something that must, we can't lose this. Obviously, it's a funding problem. It's a funding problem for the last government. And of course, the Labor government has always been very good about cultural heritage. And so I'm sure it's only a matter of kind of putting forward how valuable it is. And I'm sure that I feel positive that this may be the funding may be revisited. Thank you, Councillor O'Connor, in the future. Making libraries pay is just ridiculous, making local libraries pay. And we're cash-strapped councils, and we've got enough on our plate. There's no doubting the value, but it can't be paid by us. And if you do want that recipe of the sliced heart with banana on toast, I have it here if anyone wants to have a look at it. But we understand budget decreases have been made because of the last budget / most of our cultural treasures, but we hope that this one will be restored soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, for the information and the show. We're all richer for it. Councillor Widders, once Councillor O'Brien switches her microphone off, I'll throw to you.
Yeah, thank you to mover and seconder. I'd like to go along with what they've said. Within, especially in regards to Aboriginal heritage and what you can find on Trove, I think whoever uses it really needs to put the pressure on their federal member to make sure the funding gets going there. Just a quick little story from my point of view in my daytime job, doing some information and stuff on the western side of Armidale, out there near Mount Yarrawick, and a place in between Guyra and Bundara called Rumbling Mountain. It's on the Basin Nature Reserve, if you've heard of it. There's two theories. If you're there at a certain time, you can actually hear the mountain rumbling. And there's a couple of theories of it. One is it's the waters up around Mother Ducks Lagoon and Little Llangollen and Lake Llangollen going down through the aquifer system out west, and each rumbling is an air pocket as the water goes through. The other one is there's a traditional story that a giant kangaroo, which we know existed because we've got the bones for it, and a larger Aboriginal man are in there fighting each other. And each time you hear the rumbling, it's those two fighting and bouncing off the walls and doing all that sort of stuff. And then that sort of, using Trove, found that article on Trove, and then using Trove again, I found an article about a giant battle axe that got washed up out of the Guida River at Inverell in the early 1900s. And by using Trove and a few other different connections, we actually found that axe, and it now sits in the Sydney Museum, has been there for ages. It's a piece of ironstone, fairly heavy piece of ironstone, 30 centimetres one way, 21 centimetres the other. So a fairly large human would have to wield that, and which then backs up where it's found and where it was located along that same area, backs up the story. So by using Trove, we were able to find all that sort of thing. So no matter what you use it for, whether it's for recipes, whether it's for things like that, whether it's for information on your families, whether it's for, you're looking to buy a house and you want to know what colour was the door in 1922, there might be something on there. I think we really need to, I don't know what sort of sway we have over this, but I think it's a resource that a lot of Australians use and should be fighting for.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. Councillor Redwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I congratulate Councillor McMichael on this notice of motion and support the motion to write to the federal government to try and reverse this clear cost shifting to local government, because that's effectively what it is. And I do hope that my children's children can look up the campaign poster of Councillor Deborah O'Brien from the 2021 election and be able to see it one day. So, yeah, very supportive.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
I think I just wanted to say that I think the debate, if you like, or the contributions we've had so far demonstrate the fact that you really can't put a value on what's in Trove, and it's basically it's the people's heritage, it's the people's memory of themselves, and the taxpayers from the dawn of time have actually made Trove possible. And I agree with the view that this is the value is immeasurable, and it is cost shifting, and it's a disgrace, and we should call it out for that. And if anybody tries to stop or commodify not just this valuable information, but what a crime to try and commodify for the benefit of the government of the day juicy gossip from the past. That's a disgrace, and we should call it out as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillors, let's put this to the vote. All those in favour of council lobbying government? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Which brings us to item 12.2, which is a notice of motion that Councillor O'Connor has put forward, which is to provide, it's in regard to the proposed Murrumbidgee GP scheme with details from page 25. So Councillor O'Connor, I'll call on you to move the motion and provide some context.
Oh, thank you. Look, I think all the context we really need is in the body of the motion. It's a matter of public notice that we are in a dilemma right here in Armidale. I mean, it's been on the 7:30 report, so what more can I say? That we've got about 6,000 GP patients in Armidale having no GP, and the hole that's going to punch into our aspirations for growth and even sustaining our current population is, extremely critical. I do want to defer to Councillor Michael, who I've been in discussion with about this. Of course, she is co-chair with Councillor Witters of the Enriched Key Pillar Working Group. That's the area where this business really should fall. But I happen to be in conversation with one of the GPs that has been really working very hard on this, and she indicated that any support that council could give. Just a little bit more context. I'm in debt to New England Visions 2030 and Maria Hitchcock in particular, because she's sent round a letter from, I've got to, hang on, a letter from the Federal Department of Health and Aged Care, which Ms Hitchcock, I think on behalf of New England Visions 2030 wrote, just trying to do the same thing as we're doing, commending the single employer model as a way of solving our problem and asking if the Armidale community or region can be put. It was actually wider than the Armidale region. I think it's the northern end of the Hunter New England Health District. Could be actually identified as the next pilot, at least, for the single employer model or the New South Wales Murrumbidgee model, which is co-employment as between public hospitals and private practice for trainee GPs. The response has been received from the Assistant Secretary, Workforce Training Branch of the Department of Health and Aged Care, and it's like a lot of letters from government. It's full of very useful but not particularly pertinent information. And then there's the final paragraph basically says that the department is working with New South Wales Health on their proposal for 2 new single employer model trials. So this is hot off the press as of the 20th Monday, in addition to the existing trial in the New South Wales Murrumbidgee region. So look, they know we're keen. I know our local member has been doing a lot to promote this as well. But I think that there's just a great need for us to all stand aligned. It's pretty obvious to stand aligned in there. And I'm hoping that Councillor McMichael will perhaps talk to some other possibilities. But if we can pass this motion, then at least there will be support from local government, which I think is sorely needed to move forward with dealing with our immediate problem of a huge shortage of trainee GPs and GPs in our health area.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I need a seconder, so I'll make that Councillor McMichael. Councillor McMichael, any quick words?
Just happy to second the motion from Councillor O'Connor. And as she says, this is a complex issue and it's hard to combine in 5 minutes, but it's a federal and state issue which the group, the Emirates region, has been looking at for various local solutions that we can things. We've been hit hard by the loss of the 8 doctors recently. Our group will look at a suggestion which has been proffered recently for how to get more doctors into the region. The suggestion that has been the Murrumbidgee model, which is recommended in this motion, is a suggestion which is great. All suggestions are welcome. We've got another one which has just been proffered to us, which we'll look at in a meeting, and we'll get back to the council later.
Thank you, Councillor McMichael. Councillors, is there any further?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that a good primary health care system is just so important for ensuring that Armidale can grow and thrive. And that was all too clear from the New England Visions Health Forum that I attended and spoke at. So let's do everything we can to make sure this happens as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Well, if there is no further comments, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour of writing, thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, we have some committee reports. So the first one at item 13.1 is the Traffic Advisory Committee, the minutes from the 7th of March 2023, where councillors are being asked to note the minutes. Details both in the agenda and the attachments. So can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor McMichael, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor McMichael, do you want to give us a brief overview?
Look, I just have a couple of things to say. The most recent Traffic Committee had a number of events that we agreed to. And one of them was the route for the new Autumn Festival, which is coming up in a couple of weeks on the 1st of April. Armidale, the origins of the Autumn Festival go back to almost more than 30 years. Armidale local and businessman John Cannon created the Autumn Festival in 1992. It was actually an idea to celebrate horse racing's 150th birthday. In 2007, Mayor of Armidale, Peter Duckett, asked John to be the chair of the Autumn Festival Committee. Highlights during John's time as chair included introducing entertainment at Curtis Park, which we have ending this year. John was enthusiastic about the Autumn Festival and wanted to be a vibrant community event. John died in July last year. We thank him for his contribution to the city and to the region and for making the Autumn Festival the exciting community event that it has been. The Autumn Festival Committee will remember his legacy at an event this year. So thanks everyone, and look forward to the event this year. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McMichael. Councillors, if there's nothing to add in terms of noting those minutes, can I put that to a vote? All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Council, we have item 13.2. We have a number of minutes from the various key pillar working group meetings that have been held between November 2022 and March 2023. Details from page 30 of the agenda and 197 of the attachments. So the minutes for three working groups were provided. That was the enriched region, the future region and the growing region. Now, council is being asked to note the various minutes, though I suggest once the motion is moved and seconded, the chairs of each pillar have an opportunity just to give us a quick update of what their group has been up to. So can I call for a mover for what is on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Gadders, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Galletley. Councillor Gadders, anything to say as the chair of one of those groups?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe that's what I'll do is jump in terms of that role as chair of the growing group, just with a quick update of some of our activity that's going on. As you can see, written in the documentation, we have had quite a focus on getting the airport cafe back up and running. It's been a void in our community in that particular facility for some time. So as you would have seen from last month's ordinary council meeting, we've adopted that there was a recommendation for Tattersalls to be the operator at that facility. So hopefully very soon that particular operation will be up and running and in place and of benefit to the community. Also, I guess in terms of other areas for the growing region group, we've had quite a lot of focus in our projects coming through from last year as well around the airport as a precinct, as well as several projects focused on the tourism area. So while those continue, I guess what I'd like to highlight is some of the new projects we've put in our docket that you would see in these particular minutes, which is a more recent focus in terms of expanding and working with some of the local business operators at the big end of town as well as the small end of town. And we're taking that forward in terms of setting up some forums with local business owners in the coming weeks and months, and where we basically will take the opportunity to open a dialogue and find out the current heartbeat of many of the operations in town and how we can actually move forward and continue to help. In fact, one of these dialogues started last night with a small group of people that we attended in terms of business owners and operators from the mall. And so look forward to taking forward, some of their considerations and concerns and putting a framework around that to drive forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, does anyone else wish to make a comment on that?
Yeah, jump in now for the enriched region. As you can read there, our focus towards the end of last year was around the same lines as Councillor O'Connor's motion, looking at this issue of losing some doctors and health services and what we can do on a local level. We got together some people from different organisations and different things and put them in a room together and got them to working towards that, looking at different things like how do we attract people to come here, whether we a concierge sort of service, childcare services, looking after the doctors or nurses or whatever, their partners and families, so making sure that they've got schools and jobs and everything else, so making it really attractive for people to want to come here. So looking at that, and hopefully at our next meeting we continue that on. We're sort of just focusing on one issue at a time and really kickstarting that and then letting the community run with it and then picking another one from there. So at the moment it's still that one.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. All right, councillors, if there's nothing else, let's put this to a vote. All those in favour of noting the minutes? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Questions for which notice has been given? We don't have any there. So that...
Can I chuck in an urgent matter?
Yes.
Yeah, it just for this one's for the community more, so they get it to know if it is an urgent matter. Within either next month or the month after, I'll be moving a motion to put acknowledgement of country signs at the council border. What I'm asking for from the community is if anyone has any information that they'd like to give me, they can send it through to our emails. It's bwitters@armidale.nsw.gov.au. I have enough information to put a motion forward. What I'm doing is giving the community who haven't been involved notice that they can send that information to me to help with my motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Witters. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, ends the open session of the meeting. Thank you. We're going to be entering closed shortly, so can I please have a motion to move, thank you, into closed session? Thank you, Councillor Robinson. A seconder, thanks, Councillor O'Brien. All those in favour? Thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. So, public, thank you for your attendance. And should you wish to return when we come back into open council, please feel free to wait around. But we will I welcome councillors back into the open session and I ask the General Manager to read out the resolutions of the closed session.
Oh, hell, I closed down. Can I? I forgot about that. Thanks, Mr Mayor. Item 15.1, professional services contract for the... Item 15.1, professional services contract, Kempsey Armidale Road Restoration Project. Resolved by Council that Council accept tenders submitted for the client-side professional services relating to the Kempsey Armidale Road Recovery Project and engage the following contractors, noting the proposed weekly rates and current nominated individuals. 1. Bellwether Consulting Services Proprietary Limited for the roles of Project Director, Senior Project Manager, 2 Project Engineers, 2 Surveillance Officers and an Administration Officer. 2. Progens Proprietary Limited for the role of Workplace Health and Safety Manager. And 3. Rob Osling and Associates Proprietary Limited for the roles of Commercial Manager and Communications Officer. B. Delegate authority to the General Manager to approve expenditure up to the upper funding limit of funding available for the project from grant funds. And C. Delegate authority to the General Manager to execute all documents in relation to the contracts. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. Well, if there is no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 5:02. Thank you all.